The awakening, relatable pain. There comes a moment, perhaps you're feeling it right now as you watch this, when the cumulative weight of existence becomes almost physically unbearable. It's that specific quality of exhaustion that seeps into your bones, that colors your perception of everything, that makes even simple pleasures feel like burdens. You wake up already tired, not just physically, but in that deeper, more profound way where your soul feels weary before your body has even moved. The colors of life that once seemed vibrant and compelling have faded to various shades of gray. Responsibilities that you once shouldered with purpose now feel like chains dragging you downward. Joys that used to lift your heart now seem distant, just out of reach, like beautiful landscapes viewed through thick, distorting glass. This isn't ordinary fatigue. This is what happens when you've been running on emotional and spiritual reserves that were never replenished. This is the consequence of giving too much for too long without receiving adequate nourishment in return. It's the feeling of going through all the motions, checking all the boxes, meeting all the expectations, fulfilling all the roles society and family and career have assigned you. While inside, something essential feels hollow, empty, drained beyond measure. You look in the mirror and recognize the face looking back, but you don't feel connected to the person inhabiting that face. There's a disconnect between the external performance of living and the internal experience of being alive. Meanwhile, you look around and see others seemingly thriving, chasing dreams with passion, finding meaning in ordinary moments, radiating a vitality that feels completely foreign to you. And in those quiet, unguarded moments, you wonder what's fundamentally wrong with you. Why does everything feel so impossibly heavy when others make it look so light? Why does the mere thought of another identical day fill you with existential dread rather than joyful anticipation? Why does life, which philosophers and poets describe as the ultimate gift, instead feel like a burden you never asked to carry and don't know how to put down? This profound weariness transcends ordinary burnout or stress. The ancient Greeks had a precise term for this condition: acedia, the soul's weariness, a spiritual fatigue that medieval monks identified as one of the most dangerous threats to human flourishing. And remarkably, nearly 2,000 years ago, a Roman emperor, facing relentless wars, devastating plagues, personal betrayals, and unimaginable political pressure, felt exactly what you're feeling right now. His name was Marcus Aurelius, and his private writings, never meant for publication, never intended for anyone else's eyes, became one of history's most surprising and profound guides for navigating precisely this feeling of being tired of life itself. The conditioning, how we lost our way. From our earliest childhood, we're systematically conditioned to believe that life should follow a specific, predictable trajectory. We're taught the fundamental formula: study diligently, work hard, find romantic love, build a stable life, accumulate possessions, and somewhere along this carefully charted path, we'll inevitably arrive at the destination called happiness. But what happens when you've conscientiously checked all these boxes? When you've followed the prescribed formula with dedication and integrity, and you still arrive at a profound sense of emptiness? When you possess everything you were told you should want, but the wanting itself remains stubbornly unsatisfied, and the fulfillment you were promised feels like a mirage that perpetually recedes as you approach it? Our modern world, with its relentless emphasis on achievement, consumption, and external validation, has conditioned us to seek fulfillment in precisely the wrong places. We chase promotions, possessions, social media likes, and others' approval as if these external markers could somehow fill the internal void. We've been sold the seductive but ultimately empty lie that more success, more money, more recognition, more stimulation will finally bring us the peace and contentment we crave. But this endless pursuit becomes its own form of exhaustion, a hamster wheel that spins faster and faster while taking us nowhere meaningful. Marcus Aurelius observed this human tendency nearly 2 millennia ago when he wrote, "How quickly all things disappear. In the universe, the bodies themselves, but in time, the remembrance of them. He understood the fundamental emptiness of chasing external validation and material accumulation. The Stoics recognized that we suffer not because of events themselves, but because of the judgments we attach to those events. Our exhaustion with life often stems not from life itself, but from the meaning we've been conditioned to assign to our experiences. We've internalized the toxic belief that our worth is measured by our productivity, that our value is determined by our achievements, that our identity is constructed from our accomplishments. This conditioning runs so deep that we often don't even recognize it as conditioning. It simply feels like reality. When we inevitably fall short of these impossible standards, as all humans eventually do, we interpret it as personal failure, rather than recognizing the inherent flaw in the standards themselves. This creates a vicious cycle where we push ourselves harder to meet external expectations, while our internal world becomes increasingly depleted and disillusioned. The psychological impact of this conditioning is profound. Neuroscience reveals that chronic stress from pursuing unattainable ideals actually rewires our brain, keeping us in a perpetual state of fight or flight. Our nervous systems become overloaded. Our emotional resources become depleted, and we find ourselves increasingly disconnected from our authentic selves. We become strangers to our own lives, performing roles written by society rather than living truths emerging from our core being. The Stoic shift. Rediscovering perspective. What if the solution to being tired of life isn't about changing your circumstances, but about fundamentally changing your perspective? What if the exhaustion you feel stems not from life itself, but from the lens through which you've been taught to view life? This is precisely the revolutionary insight that Stoic philosophy, particularly through Marcus Aurelius, offers us. Marcus wrote in his private meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This single sentence contains a profound key to transforming your relationship with life itself. The Stoic shift involves moving from trying to control external circumstances, which is ultimately impossible and exhausting, to mastering your internal responses, which is always within your power. When you're tired of life, what you're often actually tired of is the endless, futile struggle to make reality conform to your expectations. The Stoics practiced what they called the view from above, mentally rising above their immediate circumstances to see their lives in broader context. Marcus Aurelius would remind himself, "Think of the universal substance, of which you have a very small portion, and of universal time, of which a short and indivisible interval has been assigned to you, and of that which is fixed by destiny, and how small a part of it you are. This isn't meant to diminish your significance, but to put your struggles in perspective. When you're immersed in daily frustrations, they loom large and consume your energy. When you view them from a cosmic perspective, they find their proper proportion." Another crucial Stoic concept is Amor Fati, the love of one's fate. Rather than resisting what life brings, the Stoics learn to embrace it, not with passive resignation, but with active acceptance. Marcus wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." This is the alchemical power of perspective, to transform burdens into fuel, obstacles into opportunities, exhaustion into energy. When you stop fighting reality and start working with it, you conserve enormous amounts of psychological energy that you've been wasting on resistance. The Stoics also understood the healing power of present moment awareness. Much of our exhaustion comes from ruminating about the past or worrying about the future. Marcus counseled, "Confine yourself to the present. By bringing your attention fully to the current moment, you escape the heavy burden of temporal anxiety. The present moment is always manageable. It's our mental time travel that exhausts us." This mindful presence wasn't just philosophical theory for the Stoics. It was a practical tool for conserving vital energy and finding peace amidst chaos. Practical framework. Marcus's daily practices. Marcus Aurelius didn't just philosophize about dealing with life's weariness. He developed concrete daily practices that we can adapt for our modern lives. His approach wasn't about dramatic transformations, but consistent, small actions that cumulatively reshape our experience of reality. The first and most fundamental practice he employed was what he called morning preparation. Each dawn, before engaging with the world's demands, he would mentally rehearse the challenges he might face, not with anxiety, but with calm preparedness. He wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." This wasn't pessimism. It was psychological armor. By anticipating difficulties, he prevented them from draining his emotional resources when they appeared. The second crucial practice was what modern psychology would call cognitive distancing. The ability to observe your thoughts without being controlled by them. Marcus advised, "Remember, matter, how tiny your share of it. Time, how brief and fleeting your allotment of it. Fate, how small a role you play in it." This practice creates psychological space between you and your exhausting thoughts. When you feel overwhelmed by life, this mental stepping back allows you to see your situation with greater clarity and less emotional charge. It's the difference between being caught in a storm and watching that same storm from a sheltered vantage point. His third practice involved constant perspective shifting. He would remind himself, "Think of the whole of existence, of which you are the tiniest part. Think of the whole of time, in which you have been assigned a brief and fleeting moment. Think of destiny, of how much is beyond your control." This wasn't meant to diminish his importance, but to contextualize his struggles. When we're exhausted by life, our problems often feel all-consuming. By consciously expanding our perspective, we reduce our burdens to their proper size. A difficult day becomes just one day among thousands. A challenging situation becomes a small episode in the vast sweep of our lives. The fourth practice was what he called turning obstacles into fuel. Rather than resisting difficulties, he learned to work with them. His famous formulation, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way," represents a profound psychological shift. When you're tired of life, every obstacle feels like additional weight. But when you learn to see obstacles as opportunities for growth and practice, they become sources of energy rather than drains on it. This isn't mere positive thinking. It's a fundamental reorientation toward reality that transforms exhaustion into engagement. Emotional mastery. Transforming exhaustion into energy. Marcus Aurelius faced emotional challenges that would break most people. Betrayal by trusted advisors, the death of multiple children, constant political intrigue, endless military campaigns. Yet his writings reveal a man who developed remarkable emotional resilience. His approach to emotional mastery begins with what he called proper judgment. The understanding that events themselves don't disturb us, but our judgments about them do. He wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." This insight is revolutionary for anyone tired of life. Your exhaustion may not be about your circumstances, but about how you're interpreting those circumstances. The second pillar of his emotional mastery was what he termed the inner citadel, a psychological fortress that remains undisturbed by external events. He advised, "Nowhere can you find a more peaceful, less interrupted retreat than in your own soul. So constantly give yourself this retreat and renew yourself." This isn't about withdrawing from life, but about cultivating an inner sanctuary, where you can restore your energy regardless of external chaos. When you're tired of life, this practice of intentional inner retreat becomes essential maintenance for your soul, a way to recharge without needing to escape your responsibilities. His third emotional technique involved what modern psychology calls emotional granularity. the ability to identify and name specific emotions with precision. Marcus would meticulously examine his emotional states, search into their causes, which lie in judgments. Eradicate these judgments, and your anger too will be eradicated. By bringing conscious awareness to his emotional patterns, he prevented them from controlling him. For someone exhausted by life, this practice prevents emotional energy from being wasted on vague, undifferentiated feelings of weariness, and instead allows for targeted addressing of specific sources of depletion. The fourth aspect of his emotional mastery was his practice of cosmic humility. Recognizing his small but significant place in the larger scheme of existence, he reminded himself, "Always remember then of what kind of things the universe is made, and of what kind of things you are made." This perspective counters the ego exhaustion that often underlies life-weariness. When we stop taking ourselves so seriously, when we recognize that we're part of something vastly larger than our personal struggles, we release tremendous energy that was previously consumed by self-importance and resistance. Purpose rediscovery. Finding meaning in the mundane. One of the most profound sources of life-weariness is the sense that our daily activities lack meaning or purpose. Marcus Aurelius, despite his immense power and responsibilities, struggled with this same challenge. His solution wasn't to find some grand, earth-shattering purpose, but to infuse meaning into every ordinary action. He wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, 'I have to go to work as a human being. What do I have to complain of if I'm going to do what I was born for, the things I was brought into the world to do?'" This reframing transforms duty into purpose, obligation into opportunity. His approach to purpose involved what we might call relational meaning, finding significance not in abstract achievements, but in our connections with others. He advised, "People exist for the sake of one another. Teach them then, or bear with them." When you're tired of life, this focus on service and connection can reignite your sense of meaning. The exhaustion of self-focused striving gives way to the energy that comes from contributing to something beyond yourself. Even small acts of kindness or moments of genuine connection become sources of renewable energy. Another key aspect of his purpose philosophy was what he termed living according to nature, aligning your actions with your essential character and the fundamental nature of reality. He wrote, "Be satisfied with success in even the smallest matter, and think that even such a result is no trifle." This practice counters the perfectionism and grandiose expectations that often underlie life-weariness. When you find meaning in small, daily alignments with your values, rather than waiting for monumental achievements, you discover a sustainable source of purpose that doesn't depend on external validation. Marcus also practiced what we might call virtue as its own reward, finding satisfaction in acting with integrity, regardless of outcomes. He noted, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." This approach to purpose liberates you from the exhaustion of trying to control results, and instead focuses your energy on what you can control, your own character and actions. When your sense of purpose comes from living virtuously in each moment rather than achieving specific outcomes, you tap into an inexhaustible wellspring of meaning that circumstances cannot diminish. Boundary setting. Conserving your life force. Marcus Aurelius understood that one of the primary reasons people become tired of life is that they fail to protect their energy from unnecessary drains. His meditations are filled with wisdom about setting psychological and emotional boundaries. He recognized that we have limited life force, and that wisdom involves conserving it for what truly matters. He wrote, "How much time he gains who does not look to see what his neighbor says, or does, or thinks, but only at what he does himself, to make it just and holy." This represents a crucial boundary, the decision to focus your limited attention on your own sphere of control, rather than exhausting yourself with others' opinions and actions. His approach to boundaries involved what he called the sphere of choice, clearly distinguishing between what is within your power and what isn't. He advised, never let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present. This mental boundary prevents the exhaustion that comes from worrying about things outside your control. By focusing your energy only on what you can actually influence, you stop leaking vital force into fruitless anxiety about the uncontrollable. Another boundary practice involved what we might term emotional filtration, carefully choosing which external stimuli and opinions you allow to affect you. Marcus noted, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, our artides. We have noticed crime, but care more about their opinion than our own." This insight reveals how we exhaust ourselves by prioritizing others' judgments over our own wisdom. Setting this boundary means developing the courage to trust your own assessment of your life rather than constantly seeking external validation that inevitably drains your energy. Perhaps his most powerful boundary technique was what he called the power of assent. The ability to consciously choose which thoughts and impressions you accept into your mind. He wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." This understanding empowers you to set boundaries at the most fundamental level, the gateway of your own mind. When you're tired of life, this practice allows you to filter out the mental patterns that contribute to your exhaustion and deliberately cultivate thoughts that restore and energize you. It's the ultimate boundary, the one you set at the threshold of your own consciousness. Integration. Living the Stoic way forward. The ultimate test of Marcus Aurelius's wisdom isn't in understanding his concepts but in integrating them into the fabric of your daily life, especially when you feel most tired of living. Integration begins with what he called the discipline of assent, the moment-by-moment practice of choosing how you respond to life's challenges. He wrote, "You always own the option of having no opinion. There is never any need to get worked up or to trouble your soul about things you can't control." This daily discipline transforms exhaustion into engagement by shifting your focus from what's happening to you to how you're choosing to respond. The second aspect of integration involves what we might call rituals of renewal, deliberate practices that replenish your energy and perspective. Marcus advised, "Give yourself a gift, the present moment." This simple practice of returning to the here and now becomes a powerful antidote to life-weariness. Unlike grand gestures or dramatic life changes that often add to our exhaustion, these small moments of presence are always available and consistently restorative. They require no special circumstances, only your conscious attention. Integration also demands what Marcus termed the view from above as a regular mental practice. He reminded himself, "Think of the universal substance, of which you have a very small portion, and of universal time, of which a short and indivisible interval has been assigned to you." This isn't an occasional philosophical exercise but a daily tool for putting your struggles in perspective. When integrated into your routine, this practice prevents the magnification of difficulties that so often leads to life-weariness. Your challenges remain real, but they lose their power to consume all your energy and hope. Finally, integration requires what Marcus called the art of acquiescence, the wisdom to accept what cannot be changed while vigorously improving what can. He wrote, "Accept whatever comes to you, woven in the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs?" This balanced approach prevents the exhaustion that comes from either futile resistance or passive resignation. It allows you to conserve energy by accepting reality as it is, while directing your efforts toward meaningful improvement within your sphere of influence. Marcus Aurelius's final wisdom for those tired of life might be this: the object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane. The weariness you feel may be the sane response to living according to values and patterns that don't serve your deepest nature. His teachings offer not an escape from life, but a way to engage with it that conserves your energy, honors your humanity, and transforms exhaustion into purposeful engagement.